hello, listener, and welcome to another episode of the Bullet List.
Still one?
Yeah, just the one. Yeah. Well, I might have two because we've got a guest.
Hello, everybody. Shall I say who I am?
Sure. Actually,
Yeah.
Bob, then that saves you.
Oh, yeah, saves me an effort. I'll just take it here and let you get on with it.
No one ever gives me an introduction anyway. So it's Stuart Mitchell from Catch the Mice. Hello, everybody.
Welcome.
Which is a great name, by the way. Catch the Mice is a fantastic name for an event company.
Yeah, and I'm not a rat catcher. I'm hoping we're speaking to event professionals.
Well, I was about to say, anybody outside the industry can start thinking that you're actually chasing rodents, but you're not.
I have been asked that many times by people outside the sector, but yes, I'm a meetings, incentives, conferences, exhibitions expert, MICE.
Yes, you go to a dinner party and people think you're an exterminator.
Very true. I've got a problem in the cellar. Can you come and fix it?
It's like, yeah, do they like lights? Do they dance?
That's a little sideline I'm doing.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Well, we're going to go straight on to the shortlist.
Yes.
And the first item on the shortlist for this episode is the return of events in the UK, at least. And that would be in particular in reference to Confex 2021.
Yeah. You guys are headed back. We've been trying to come back over here. And I think, I don't know how long they're going to last here. How long do you guys think they're going to last over there?
It was like one big party at Confex. I have to say, I exhibited, and it was great to see everyone again. Numbers were down, to be fair. I think occupancy was footfall was about 30% of what it has been in the past. But there's no doubt about it. Everyone that came just wanted to have, it wasn't bumping arms. It was a full-on cuddle. So whether we're going to be sick and we're going to go down with COVID, I've got no idea. But it was just great to see other people in the industry again.
That's an interesting point, actually, because coming up soon is going to be the meeting show. Now, if there are any reported infections, if anybody gets COVID after Confex 2021, it's not going to look good for the meeting show or anything coming afterwards.
No, I'm at the Events show on Friday, and I've been testing myself almost daily just to make sure that I am clean, ready for that one. But yes, it's a petrifying thought, to be perfectly honest. For the events industry to have so many people together that could potentially be sick and running their own events as well. So, yeah.
Sure.
Well, we have a problem here in that each state makes their own rules. So, if you look at the, Texas and Florida, which are our big meetings destinations, Florida more so than Texas. But if somebody popped up with a big event in Florida right now, I don't know that I would go. Right. Mm-hmm. Here in Chicago, which we're a little bit more strict than the rest of the nation, I would still think twice about it here. So I just wonder. I wonder if, it's one of those things where are we getting ahead of ourselves? Because I want to get back to live events. It's what I do. But are we setting ourselves up for a longer time to being back to normal?
I have to say, I've been looking at my crystal ball, as I always do, and don't even go there. But I genuinely seem to be the portrayer of bad news in our sector, and I think everyone looks at me as a doom and gloom monkey. But I think realistically, I'm a realist rather than an optimist, and I'm sure that we are going to have to slow down, and there's going to be some sort of braking mechanism to stop this going through the roof again. Even if we are all vaccinated, we're still going to spread this thing. So I am very dubious about Christmas. I think Christmas is going to be the big challenge for everyone, Christmas parties and such like, which could have another crippling effect on our industry. And I am concerned about it.
Yeah, our first live, the next live event we have on the books is for late the last week of January, early February, and I wonder how we're going to end up, because exactly that with Christmas and New Year's and Thanksgiving here in the States is really big, so that's where you get the push of people starting to get together, and then usually on a normal year it rolls all the way through the end of the year. That may not look good for an end of January event.
Well, that brings us into item number 2 quite nicely, because in the UK, it looks like the government's plans will happen, and we're going to have vaccine passports for events.
Personally, I think it's a really sensible move. I don't care really what people say about this, your own civil liberties. If we've got a passport, I'm happy to flash my passport. I've got it here. I know it's not, you can't see this, but I have my double vaccine here, and I'm happy to take that round. We are taking it round unofficially. I took it to Confex last week. I'm taking it to Scotland on Friday for another event. So yeah, we've got it already, I think.
I think the vaccine passport idea, I think, is spectacular. I think if it's well done, it can be, I mean, it can alleviate so much, so many pain points, like at the door of going into a concert or an event or whatever it happens to be. You guys sometimes are a little fortunate in that if you have to do things, Europeans and the rest of the world are like, oh, okay, we have to do this. And so they go ahead and they do it. Americans are stubborn and stupid. And so we fight everything every freaking stretch of the way.
Oh,
so
well, we've had demonstrations. There's been a lot of demonstrations in central London saying you're impinging our rights by making us wear masks. Mm-hmm. Consequently, most of the people in hospital right now are people who have got themselves infected by COVID.
Oh yeah, there are 99% of the people here that are in the hospital here are unvaccinated people.
Yeah.
But again, yes, you guys will have the people that go out and protest and do things like that. But if it comes down and you have to, right? Whereas here, we always look at rules as suggestions rather than.
Well, yeah.
I think personally, I've got lots of friends in the nightclub industry as well that need to be open and nightclubs are just a nightmare for COVID. But I, as an 18, 20, 30-year-old, in fact, 50-year-old, quite happy to have my passport and so I can go clubbing. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's get that sector open again.
Yeah, I truly started my career in nightclubs, and I feel for them. They are really getting so many here in Chicago are now gone. The classic ones that had been around for 40 years, however long, they're gone now. Because they can't survive. If you're not selling, if you're not slinging booze, you're not surviving.
Well,
so personal view. Sorry, Bob.
It brings us to number 3 actually on our shortlist, which is again UK based, but the event sector is down by about 57 billion. So yeah, if you've got a passport and it allows you to have an event, yeah, you're going to do it.
Suck it up, get a passport. Let's get the business going again.
Yeah, right. Well, even the vaccine people, it's like, good God, stop whining and go get the damn vaccine. It's like, good God, it just makes me crazy. I do have a couple of anti-vax friends, and it's like, what is wrong with you? You won't get the jab, yet you will go and take horse parasite pills. It doesn't make any sense.
Love your friends, Keith. I can't wait to go out with them.
Well, this is the thing. There are people who would take various substances that they've got from a man in a pub.
Yeah, I'm all for that.
Yeah, but when it comes to a government-issued, well-researched and well-funded anti-COVID vaccine, oh no, I'm not taking that because you don't know what's in it.
No, you're absolutely right.
Work that one out.
Humans are stupid.
I do a lot of work at the festivals, and ketamine and God knows what else the other drugs are around. Yeah, absolutely. It's better to have it medicated and controlled. But no, I'm all for that. Going back to your point about the losses, I'm not surprised at the report that came out this week. How big those losses are. Let's face it, we've had our hands tied, feet tied, everything. We've been bound up for such a long time, and when we were just about to start, everyone accelerated and then hit that brick wall where we were all told we couldn't do things again. It's been brutal on our industry. And Bob, I know you know that I do some work for our mental health charity or organization, Eventwell, for our event professionals. But quite honestly, it's been dreadful for everyone that's whether it's it's an event organizer or through to the technical guys, the roadies, all of the musicians, it's been everywhere. So that report, I don't think is surprising.
And I also think the losses are actually greater than any report that comes in that says 50 billion. You can probably double it to get a more accurate description of the impact, right? Because those impacts are felt far beyond the industry. I mean, it's not only the money that's coming into the exhibit hall, but it's the convenience store that's 3 blocks away from the convention center that Absolutely. Is missing, right? And that the convenience store a block away might get included in that, or guesstimated in there, but it's the other ancillary things, or even in a family, right? When one person, I would guess that it's probably closer to double what the figure they're reporting is.
Totally agree with you. All those support services. You're right. Yeah, the printers and consultants and everyone else that mucks in to make it happen.
Trying not to go down too much of a rabbit hole, but I know as you mentioned, Stuart, you are working alongside Eventwell, the charity supporting at least the UK event industry. I know you've got branches off in the States now, but they're the ones who have really been hearing all the stories of how it's not just an event planner that is suffering by having losses within the business, but it's all the members of the family who are relying on that person's income.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I can't say I work for them. I do some support. I support the team and try to raise the awareness and raise some funds for Eventwell, so that the message can be broadcast professionally by the team to do that. So it's more of a sort of a subsidiary work that I do with them. But I spoke to Eventwell back in, I think it was probably November last year, having spoken to colleagues and industry friends and supporting colleagues all through the last sort of the first 9 months of the restrictions. And I was flabbergasted how much it had affected everyone. I would say that 80% of the people that in our industry fell through the cracks in terms of support, government support, had no money coming in, had no prospects of any money coming in, and couldn't see any light at that proverbial end of that proverbial tunnel. And it's very dark when you're in that position, and it's you need someone to talk to. In fact, I'm doing a little chat on Friday about all of this and how we can build back better, and how we can, especially us blokes. We got three chaps here. We don't like to admit that we are in a bad position financially. We don't do that with friends. We certainly don't do it with business relations, because you don't want to look weak in front of your colleagues. And I'm afraid it's good to talk. And I think the onus is going to be on a lot of the junior members of staff to speak to their bosses, because I don't think you realize how much pressure the boss is under as well.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. And, I actually, fortunately, I will be the first to admit, when I am the exception to the rule. When they first started instituting, the lockdowns and it was getting bad here in the United States, I was scared. Like I'm like, oh my God, every live event that we have scheduled, every contract I was just sitting in my chair going, what the are we going to do? And luckily we had done virtual events in the past. They weren't new to us and we were able to successfully pivot, but there were a lot of people that couldn't. Their plane had 3 or 4 engines were out, and there was no pulling up for them, and I think that we have lost a monumental amount of brain power that's gone forever.
Right. We're struggling with that. I know we'll probably touch on that shortly. Bob, over to you.
Yeah, well, what we'll do in the show notes, we'll put a link to Eventwell. So if anybody who's listening wants further information, it will be there. It's a great organization, and it's, go visit and go check out. But that does bring us to the end of the shortlist for this episode.
You're listening to the Bullet List Podcast.
Oh, I love those pauses.
As you can see, a few rabbit holes.
Yeah, we're still learning. But anyway, we're back, and now we're going to do the bullet list, which is what this is all about. And today's bullet list is provided by Stuart himself. So what are we doing, Stuart?
Well, it's just about trying to dip your toe in the proverbial water of virtual events. I think Keith mentioned before lockdown, if you were an event organizer that had done virtual events beforehand, you could capitalize on the opportunity. If you hadn't, you were in dire straits. So I think the bullet list is really about the importance for event professionals to actually take the plunge and jump into the virtual events market.
Well, and I'm going to jump in on this because this is actually a really interesting, first strike on that bullet list, because even though we're a year and a half into it now, it is absolutely amazing how many event professionals, I got 3 off the top of my head, that have never worked in or done any type of virtual event. And the amount of associations that I know of that we're now, I don't know, we're heading into year 2 pretty soon, that kind of paused everything and haven't done anything since. So there are still a whole lot of people that need to get their brain wrapped around the virtual space, because it is never going to go away now.
You're absolutely right. And I think you touched on it before, but I've saw a lot of really good agencies. I mean, absolutely niche boutique agencies that had a really profitable business before COVID that had not done virtual, and they closed up shop. They hibernated, they cut all their costs, they did what they needed to do to survive, laid staff on, took advantage of the furlough system, all of these things. But in the meantime, those businesses that had actually got involved with virtual events were slowly picking off their client base, because their client base needed to come back into some sort of virtual event, but didn't perceive their existing supplier to be the quote expert. So were pulled off and cherry picked by the bigger agencies that had already potentially had the foresight or the luck to have gone into that situation before. And you're right. Now we've opened up, they've come back into live events, and they've lost 30%, 40% of their potential revenue. I think it's absolutely imperative people do jump into virtual.
Well, it's funny, when the economy is in a downturn, the smart go hunting, right? You don't retreat, because you're going to end up at the bottom of the pile.
But it's difficult. I mean, this is the point. It's really hard to get into virtual events, and also to admit that you're not an expert at virtual events, because let's face it, not many of us are. We've had to get around it and learn in a kind of very weird environment.
But here, I will. True, not a lot of people are experts. However, there are so many opportunities to become knowledgeable. And in 1998, I think that, not knowing something hurt. But now, if you, for example, I bought a new piece of equipment, and no one knows, but my office is a complete wreck right now. The other day, I bought it, didn't know how to use it. I looked up, there were 50 YouTube videos, right? And again, it's a very simple comparison, but if you wanted to learn how to do a virtual event, there is no shortage of documentation, posts, videos on how to learn. Right. And this is where, you kind of have to sit up on the couch and say, you know what, today's my day. I'm at least going to become knowledgeable.
This is something I was going to chime in, but you've very eloquently, said exactly what I was about to say, which is, I know the last 18 months have been very tough for a lot of people in the industry. And I don't want to put anybody off the struggles they've gone through, but it's been an amazing time to learn new stuff.
Yeah,
absolutely. And as you say, Keith, it's on blog posts, on YouTube. If you want to learn something, somebody's probably already demonstrated how to do it.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to be a callous ass. I mean, that's not my intention, because there are people who go through struggles, and even getting out of bed to learn something can be a very hard thing, and I don't want to minimize that, but that's true. But you have to. At some point, you just have to watch that first stupid video and read that the blog post that speaks to you like you're 5 years old, but do it.
Well, I did it. But pre-COVID, I had never, ever got involved with virtual. I was representing privately owned hotels and islands and beautiful luxurious resorts all over the world and promoting them to the UK events industry. That all stopped. I couldn't see it coming back. I thought, what can I do? And virtual platform was the option. So I now represent virtual platforms and work with two as their business development lead in the UK, two platforms. And I think it's been brilliant. And I have to say, what I'm also doing is I'm holding the hands of people that had never organized a virtual event before to show them how it's done. And that's the way I've been doing.
Got to give a shout out to the two platforms you're representing. Who you representing? A
great UK-based platform called Intellego. Very simple to use, very intuitive, very powerful, great analytics. So Intellego.events is the website. Great platform. And the other one is a visually impressive, in fact, probably in my view, the best 3D platform on the market. It's VII Events, based out of Israel, an award-winning platform. Absolutely awesome.
That what I know, and yes, they are.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That does actually bring us to bullet number 2, which is global audience.
You're absolutely right. And I think, I'm hoping that we've got people globally listening to this. This is what you've got. You've suddenly got a window on the world and you can open up your market. So again, the virtual element gives you huge opportunities to expand your market. I think one of the things that I think will become the masters in the business will be the marketeers and the data analysts, the data wizards that can manipulate and get as many people watching and listening to your event as possible. It's all very well having great platforms, but actually you need to market it well. And those are going to be the people who are going to be the lifeblood of the events industry in the future, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, we had a client that they went virtual. They were supposed to be here in Chicago. It was an international group, and every year it went to a different spot on the globe. They, Tokyo and Chicago happened to be up, so we were the ones that went virtual. Very small, very niche group, and normally they attracted about 250 attendees. Great. Went virtual. They ended up with 600 attendees.
Cool.
And I would probably guess that they're never going back to in person. Just because it opened up the globe. So all the people, all of the people in countries where traveling to Chicago or Tokyo or Paris is cost prohibitive, especially from South America and the African continent and parts of Asia, where that type of money, it just isn't laying around to travel. They were all able to attend. And it was fantastic.
I did the biggest event I've been involved with on the Intellego platform was for 6,000 people running simultaneously in 4 different time zones at once. Same content going out over 3 days. Just mental when you think about it. But the cost that was saved from traveling and doing all of these events in these countries is spectacular.
Well, that brings us to point number 3, which is commercial saving. Nice segue there, Stuart.
I'm polished at this art. Savings. I mean, how many times did we get up at 3-4 in the morning to go down to a London or a meeting, 4 hours away on a train, just to literally get to the meeting and go, oh my goodness, was that what I got up for? It's just a no-brainer. I mean, Zoom, Teams, we're going to be using this forever. We're not going to go back to travel and have a boring 20-minute, half an hour meeting. It's going to be special occasions where I think we meet up.
Which actually is good for the events. It's good for, right? Because when there were, to your point, a whole lot of stupid events, right? You'd travel for these things and you'd be like, I flew all the way to Philadelphia for this. Whereas now you can do the dumb meetings or whatever they are, virtually. And the really special ones can be in person, which is actually going to drive attendance up at those events.
Absolutely. No, I think you're absolutely right. I'm not going back to traveling. I'm thinking about getting rid of the car because I just don't think I'm going to be needing it. I was on the M1, M6, M4, just 5, 6, 7, well, literally 6, 7 days a week. And now I can do those meetings, bang, 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 and then still be home for tea.
Well, I came back from the Confex last Thursday on the bus. Extinction Rebellion were in the middle of London, causing there was havoc everywhere, and it just took hours to get out of central London, not let alone getting up to North London. I wouldn't be surprised you were home before I was.
I actually had a very bad journey home, but normally I would do. But yes, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
But yeah,
The principle is that you would have been home before I had.
Yeah,
so you can imagine if you can actually save that hassle from people, they're more likely to turn up.
Absolutely.
I mean, virtually,
Virtually. But I think that there's a big question here. People talk about Zoom fatigue. It's very real. It's boring. The content is boring. The production is boring. People's cats are walking past. It's poor quality. What we need to do is change our virtual offering and make sure it's more like a TV show and more like a magazine type show, or the breakfast with an anchor person that's bringing in recording video and content.
Well, and this is going to be this could be a subject for its own episode, but the small things that even an in-house crew at a smaller association can do to increase the production quality of even a Zoom call. ATEM now, makes Black Magic, small, or Black Magic rather makes exactly. No one saw that microphone come down, but Black Magic makes the ATEM mini switcher now, which allows you to do for $300, $350, that allows you to really ramp up the production quality of even a simple Zoom call that even the smallest group on the smallest of budgets, can up the quality.
I don't want to go off. I don't want to go off into a tangent, but is anybody actually using a phone to talk to people anymore, or are we all doing Zoom and video chat?
What's a phone?
Listen, I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole, but a little pet hate is listening to the radio, listening to Radio 4 or any of the news programs on the radio. Why don't they use a phone? Because the connection quality on some of the interviews I hear on the radio, it's absolutely dreadful.
Yeah.
I think unless you've got good broadband, do it on an old-fashioned phone.
Yeah.
For radio broadcast.
There's something to be said for old-fashioned tech.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hardwired, old-fashioned tech.
We'll leave that for another episode, I suspect. I'll take it. We're up to number 4 now, sustainability.
Oh my goodness me. Now don't even get me started on this. I'll give you a great example. Let me give you a really good example. I was lucky enough to represent a beautiful property in the Maldives. And promoted it to the UK events market. And I had never seen this product. I got a phone call on the Thursday. What are you doing at the weekend? Do you want to fly out to the Maldives for the weekend to check out this property? Flew out on Friday. It was amazing. I was back up Monday morning in the office. Just mental in terms of my footprint on the world. But nonetheless, you said, what are you doing at the weekend? I'm going to the Maldives. But I do think, seriously, we've got to stop being so stupid.
Yes.
And I think the virtual environment can help us. Let's say you've held an event at the CCIB in Barcelona for years. VII events can model that product completely, so you can host it in that environment, but to a greater number of people when we haven't got people flying in all over the world. So I just think we've got to think about all the waste that we've put in the exhibition business, all that junk that gets thrown out at the end of the event, ripped up and thrown away. We've got to really start thinking about something which is going to save the planet. And let's face it, we can't have events costing the earth. That is it.
Or we won't have any events.
Very
Exactly.
true.
I'm seeing a lot more conversations coming through on various blogs, through all the blogs I'm tracking, and I'm seeing there's more conversations about sustainability. More questions are being asked about, is it coming through the supply chain properly? And if we're suggesting that virtual events is a way of curing that, or at least to lessen that footprint, it's going to be a good thing.
I think it's probably a good thing. Yeah,
I do. And if you can get rid of all of the board meetings and all of the silly meetings that traveled, right? Association board meetings are a big one, right? You're flying all those people to somewhere. They literally could, if you could do it virtually, they could meet for 3 hours, they'd be done. Right. The footprint on that is very small. Whereas before you were flying them all to Phoenix, Arizona, or London, or wherever it happened to be, we can be a very wasteful industry.
You're right. But the one concern I've got, go back a decade, go back to 2007, when we were talking about CSR. That was the buzzword literally just before the financial crash in 2007, 2008. And our industry was very up on it. Every hotel that I was working with at the time had a CSR policy, but it went out the window in 2008 2008 when we were talking about that finance, and it was finance, money. What can we do? I am really concerned that I don't think it will happen this time, but it's a concern I've got that people will not.
Just for the benefit of the listener, could you tell us what CSR is?
Corporate social responsibility.
Fine, thank you very much. If the listener gets confused, I don't want to put
my apologies.
Well, and the funny thing is, we actually have to say that because it did. They dumped it right over the 2008-9 came along, and that got pushed over the edge of the ship, and it's now floating back 50 miles behind us as we steam into a horrible future we're creating.
Probably made of plastic as well, I would have thought.
So it's floating.
Yeah. No, but seriously, it is a concern, and I think that virtual will help that.
Well, all that flying around you was talking about brings us into the last point, which is the work-life balance.
This is an interesting one. I think a lot of people have been working from home. A lot of us blokes have been sharing the responsibility of the house domestic stuff as well. That sounded very sexist. It wasn't meant to be, but it feels like we can actually share the responsibility as a partnership. I think going back into the office is going to be a challenge for a lot of people. We're already seeing that pushback from people. But what it does mean is that whoever's traveling in the relationship doesn't necessarily need to travel in the relationship, so can stay and actually have more home time with their partner, with their family, and there is a trade-off here. The one concern I've got in this is that we will not have any dividing lines between what is work and what is home, and that's my concern. Is it will all start merging into one, and we'll be out with family, and we'll be on a mobile phone holding a virtual conference, and I think that is a little bit of a concern I've got. And I'm seeing it already in terms of how many hours people who are working are working. They're almost doing two people's jobs, and I'm a bit concerned that will have a playback to. We talked about mental health earlier, but I think that may have a bit of an impact on people's mental health.
Yeah, it's funny. I have worked from home since the late 90s, early 2000s. And it was really funny. Everyone always used to ask me, well, how do you do that? Don't you miss this and don't you miss that? And I was always like, no, this is great. At 11 a.m., if I've got a spare 10 minutes, I'm throwing some laundry in, right? So my life was actually easier than if I had to go into an office. And I think that it's been great to watch everyone's faces as they've been home and go, wow, this actually works. There are a lot of people that aren't going back.
Yeah, but it depends on, see, for you, Keith, and for you others, you work for yourself. You run your business. You're the boss. There are some people who are working for companies who have said, you work from home until such time we decide otherwise. Please make sure you're available on Zoom, on your phone, on this, on that. They're under pressure from working home and don't have the luxury of saying, I'm going to take 10 minutes off just to watch a bit of telly, have something to eat, or put the washing on.
Yeah, but
there's two sides of it. I mean, yes, it's great people can work from home and have their own time, but not everybody's got that luxury. It depends on the business you're working for.
But I have 20 bosses, right? Because each client is my boss, right? So yeah, I get it. But it's amazing how many companies, though, are embracing it. Google is. They're letting, there's going to be a large percentage of their workforce that won't have to come back to the office. There's a very large pharmaceutical company that's headquartered near us. And they're like, you know what? No, you don't have to come back. And I think that's great. I think a lot of larger corporations are learning.
I think there's going to be a big demand for IT support. Before you could go and see Johnny, Janet, the IT expert, and get your computer fixed. I think that's going to be another slight downfall, but I think most people have actually overcome that quite well during the pandemic.
Well, thankfully, working from home is a well-established thing. So it's not anything that we've now been forced into, because people have been working from home for a long time. So the supplies, the IT people, furniture, it's already there. It's just the event industry sliding into that thing and trying to see if it still works after the pandemic's finished.
I certainly, when I scale my business, will be looking to have everyone remote, but have regular get-togethers for a wee beverage or two, or maybe a sort of team building element. 5, that's good. But also some team bonding. Because I think it is essential. People say you can't bond on virtual. I actually disagree. I think you can bond on social. I've met some fantastic people over lockdown, and then when I meet in person, it feels like I've known them for years.
Well, it's really funny because, case in point, Bob, we've never met in person, and I've known you for what, going on 10 years?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have no intention of making that with you. No.
Although I will say, because I know we got to wrap up, but I will say that my wife and business partner is a huge ABBA fan. That we actually got the ABBA tickets for London next June.
Oh my goodness! Congratulations!
Yes.
They're gold dust.
Yes, and she's actually a Brit, so we're actually going to come back over, spend some time in the UK, see some family, and head down there. So perhaps that will be the first time we can actually have a cup.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
I might get my jumpsuit on and come down and join you.
Nice.
I might be away that week. Okay. Right. Well, Stuart, as it's your bullet list, would you like us to summarize the points quickly?
Oh, okay. So it's dipping your toe in virtual events. Why it's so important. So you've got to have the virtual. It's a weapon in your armory. Virtual has got to be your strategic element of your overall event strategy. Point 1. 2, global audience. You've got huge opportunities to maximize your return on investment. 3, going on to money. It's all about money, making your commercial savings on travel, cost, time, resources, etc. We can save the planet. Events don't need to cost the earth is point 4. And then getting your life in balance, making sure you've got time to go to ABBA events and things like that. But actually, I think it is about work-life balance. That's the big concern I've got, making sure we get it right so we don't have any mental health issues in the future. Mental health is another whole podcast. Forget that.
That could be a two-parter.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. That's for sure.
So those are the 5 points. I hope those are useful.
Thank you very much, Stuart.
If anyone needs any help, open for assistance, need any guidance, obviously I can help.
And we will put all that in the show notes. And Bob, bring us home.
So that does indeed bring us to the end of the bullet list. And we're back for the ending. So thank you, the listener, for coming in and listening to what we've been talking about. The podcast can be found on most platforms. We're making our way out through all of them. We have an official blog where you can check out the episodes, the bullet-list.com, where you can find the podcast RSS feed, the website RSS feed, and anything else that takes your fancy. So thank you again to Stuart for taking part.
I'm taking a virtual bow. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much to Ollie again for doing the voiceover for the jingle between segments. Thank you very much. And that brings us to the end.